Well, welcome everybody to another video here on the Washington Football Maniacs channel. It's funny, I've already gotten one comment on my new intro. Person said, I almost unsubscribed because of your intro. It may be a little annoying. Forgive me, I'm playing around with it. It's a total AI stuff. So again, just playing around with it. I'll probably wind up changing it at some point soon. So just bear with me. I deleted my last one by mistake. So that being said, welcome. Let's get into today's video. First, before we get into today's video, if you want to really help me out, and I know you all do because you love the Washington Football Maniacs, I have an Etsy store that I opened up. And in my Etsy store, it's called Envy Artwork. And I sell stuff like t-shirts, I sell wall art, mugs. I got a Washington Commanders mug. It's kind of a different take on the logo. Washington Redskins banner. I even have those stinking Cowboys. Did a Cincinnati Bengals one. I'm actually proud of that one. These are all custom made. I did a Red Wolves one because, yeah, you never know. New ownership, they may even change the Commanders logo. I messed around with that. What if we go with the Red Hogs? There's your t-shirt. If you like music, like Def Leppard, I've made band shirts, youth shirts. So a little bit of something for everybody. I love this design. Watercolors for New York. So just something for everybody. Check it out. It's called Envy Artwork, and it's my Etsy store. If you want to support this channel, you can do so by going there, and you get something in return. So for this video, we are talking about the ownership change, right? Or the presumed that we're going to have an ownership change. There have been a few more nuggets of information coming out this past week concerning, one, why is it that we haven't really heard a lot of information on the sale of the Washington Commanders? And two, why hasn't Jeff Bezos been mentioned anymore from all this? Well, and then we also heard a little bit more about, suddenly, Dan Snyder puts up his Potomac house for sale for like, what was it, $45 million, and then everybody just, went all crazy, not realizing that he still had a Northern Virginia home that he lived in. So, not to, kind of pump your brakes on that one, but it certainly put a few people in frenzy mode. So here is the reason why that we hadn't really heard much progress concerning the sale. There were reports came out that said, I think it was AJ Perez who said that Daniel Snyder is holding out for at least a $7 billion bid. And when the initial bids first came in, they were all, they kind of died around that 6.5 billion dollar mark, and Dan Snyder feels like he can get more out of the sale. I mean, the initial reports were saying that the bids were upwards past $7 billion. Honestly, I think some of that news probably was leaked from the Snyder camp to just, let people think that this team is going to be the highest selling team in National Football League history. And it still could very well wind up being that. But when all the dust kind of settled, it really wound up not being the case. It really wound up being that the bids came in around, close to the middle of 6.3. So that wasn't high enough for Dan Snyder. So he's holding out for more. And I think the reason why that the bids were so low is just the simple fact that along with buying this franchise, you have also got to build a brand new stadium. And that in itself is probably going to cost you several $billions too, because you're going to want to build this state of the art stadium. You're going to want to be able to host Super Bowls. And so, because of all of that, the price tag goes up. The overall price tag really goes up. And so, bidders see that and they're like, wait a minute, why should I go out and buy this franchise for $7 or $8 billion, and then have to turn around and spend another 2 or 3 billion on a franchise or on a stadium? That's going to push my investment way, way up there. So that's the reason why that the bids were so low. So now enters Jeff Bezos, because Jeff Bezos, again, as we said in earlier videos, and you heard this around the internet as well, he did not put in an initial bid along with the other bidders. And that was because I think honestly he wanted to kind of sit back and see how the bids were going to look before that he kind of entered the ring, so to speak. And because we all know that Jeff Bezos has enough money to write a check for A, the franchise, and B, the stadium. He could do all that probably in one check. Well, of course, he's not going to write Daniel Snyder a check for a stadium, but he could write two checks. Daniel Snyder, a check for the franchise, and then another check for the stadium, and then start building it. And I'm sure that any one of the sites that were initially listed would probably work with Jeff Bezos as opposed to Dan Snyder. And probably even so, the federally owned former RFK site, I bet that they're just waiting to get rid of Dan Snyder. And I imagine there's probably a deal that's already done that, hey, you take over, this land is yours. Wouldn't doubt it a bit. But anyway, so Jeff Bezos is entering, and now there's reports that he's kind of fed up with owning the Washington Post. And I think that stuff like that is just being said just to get Dan Snyder loosened up to the fact that Jeff Bezos is probably going to be the one that has the money, and he does not want to sell to Jeff Bezos at all because of all the stuff that the Washington Post has said about Dan Snyder over the years. And okay, I can understand Dan Snyder's point and all that, but how much of that was true? Probably most of it. Having said all that, it looks like that maybe, I mean, Jeff Bezos doesn't have to sell the Washington Post, but if he does, he sells the Washington Post. Now that obstacle is out of the way. Now he can focus on saying, hey, look, Dan, got rid of the Post, got rid of that rag, sell me the team. And that could probably happen pretty quickly. It may happen anyway, because I'm not sure if any of the rest of the bidders have the money, honestly, to buy the Washington Commanders at anything more than $7 billion, and then also have the capital to be able to build a $3 billion stadium. I just don't see that happening. So now I could be wrong on that. I just don't know if that's going to happen. Jeff Bezos does. Now, having said that, I'm not the biggest fan of the fact of Jeff Bezos owning the team. I don't get the warm and fuzzies with Jeff Bezos owning the team. That's just me. I just I don't know. I feel better about some of these other names that have popped up that other people have felt would be probably a better choice. What was the Byron Allen? A lot of fans seem like they were really high on him. And who knows, at the end of the day, maybe one of these guys emerges and buys the team. Or maybe Dan Snyder says, you know what, to stick it to Jeff Bezos, I'm going to take a lower bid, and I'm going to take the money from one of these other guys and hit the trail. Or I may decide I'm not going to sell, but I think honestly that is probably the least likely of everything else, just for the simple fact that if he doesn't, his name is going to be continued dragged through the mud. There's going to continue to be more allegations probably found against him, and there's still an open-ended investigation. Was it Mary Jo White is still supposedly finishing up her investigation on Dan Snyder. So, I mean, there's still a lot going on in terms of Dan Snyder, and I think that it's more likely he does sell the team than not. So, and again, we've heard all of the stuff about it's going to happen after the Super Bowl. So, as I'm recording this video today, this is Super Bowl Sunday. Yes, I got my Sunday best on. So it's Super Bowl Sunday. Maybe things start ramping up this coming week in terms of information and news on the sale. It's supposed to happen before the owners' meeting in March. We're just, honestly, we're midway through February. A couple of weeks later, we're going to be in March. New league year is going to start up in about middle of March. So, you basically are about a month away from that. So we're going to start hearing some things pretty soon. Now, other tidbit of news that we heard, which I thought was interesting, concerning some of the other bidders for the Washington Commanders. What they said was, and this came from Sean Payton, who recently accepted a deal to become the Denver Broncos head coach next year. Sean Payton, in one of the radio interviews the other day, stated that the Commanders' bidders, now he didn't really name any names, but some of the Commander bidders or one of the Commanders' bidders had reached out to him and said, hey, if we buy the team, will you become our next head coach? And so I will probably do a more in-depth video on that part, but I just thought that was interesting that that tells you that, hey, Ron Rivera, you're going to have to kick it in gear, buddy, because new ownership, they're definitely looking for another head coach. Could Jeff Bezos be looking for another head coach? Probably. But anyway, that's another video. Folks, if you enjoyed this video, sorry it got a little lengthy, but leave your comments in the comment section, please. Like this video, helps the algorithm out quite a bit, helps me out to get this video out to the masses. Share this video, and with that said, I will see you in the next one. Hey, you stayed until the very end. Thank you so much. Watch another one right now.